So, just like every Republican event, we're going to start with a word of prayer. If you please rise and ask Commissioner comment to vote it.
If you would back in, please. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for giving us this opportunity tonight to listen and learn. We hope that brings great wisdom through you, Lord. We thank you for the country that we live in and the county that we live in. Thank you so much for the rain that you've given us, and just ask that you be with everyone on the travels here tonight and on the travels home. And be with these candidates as they spread their message in your holy and precious name. Amen.
Thanks, Thank you very much. We're going to get our county party treasurer, Robert Adams, here to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right. So tonight, we're going to start off with the candidates that want to represent you down in Austin at the Texas House in District 59. We have taken a random drawing to see which order we're going to be sitting. So in the first chair down here to the left, we're going to have Representative J.D. Sheffield. Y'all give him a round of applause. Come on. Y'all can have a seat. Just to, I'm sure many of you have come to many of these things, and unlike a debate, we like to run a forum where questions are asked. Those questions are generated by myself, they're generated by y'all, the public, and their job here tonight is to talk to you, the voter. All right? It's not a debate, I'm sorry, where they talk to each other and all that kind of stuff. But they're here to inform you about themselves. And we're going to open up the floor. There's Bob, by the way. Each candidate has 3 minutes, opening and closing statements. So the floor is yours.
I wish we weren't having to get one of these things, but good evening, Gatesville. Jack, thanks for doing this. David Gatesville, thanks for having this venue for us. Gatesville, I wish I could tell you how much I care for you and how much I care about you. This political stuff I do is only one way of serving you, only one way of showing that I care. You folks have known me for 27 years, when I was a doctor fresh out of residency. You probably see me better than I see myself, and I hope and pray you like what you see. This is about service, serving others, in a way that's often unpopular or wrong on someone's scorecard. Why are those things important when it's supposed to be about service? The polarization today, where each side blames the other, yet both are complicit in stemming the flow of good government. Campaigning is easy. Governing is hard. Hard choices must be made. You can't please everyone. And whose boss are you serving? I think back to a 3-year-old boy in my clinic recently. Playful, happy, unable to speak one word due to the trauma in his life. What type of trauma, we don't know. We barely understand. But he will have to recover from it if he expects to have a normal life. Those people are important to me. They're There's a life that could be lost in that boy. But if the state funds enough money to Child Protective Services and other agencies, maybe this kid can recover and have a normal life. His parents had to get in one. What's in a person's heart? Is it the heart of a servant or the heart of a politician? A heart of self-service. Can't be all. Can't be both. I can tell you how it's spotted in Austin. You have those representatives who always give the safe vote. The vote that won't turn up later to be ammunition for their opponents. They go with the flow. So much of what they do is lost in the shuffle and never known about it. They sit on the floor day after day, but never stand for anything. There's no need to defend my votes. My votes are done to help people. From the youngest child in Child Protective Services, to the oldest person in your family living out the remainder of their days in a nursing home, to the poor kid in a family who's barely able to put clothes on their back and send them to a public school, where the parents are hoping and praying that kid will learn what it takes to break the poverty cycle, to learn tools to a better life. Public education is where everyone has equal access. Campaigning is easy, governing is hard. When you vote for these things, you get called a liberal. I call it being Christian.
All right.
Thank you for coming. I'm Shelby Slauson, born and bred Central Texas gal. My parents, like a lot of yours, raised me to know the value of a hard day's work. I'm the first member of my family to receive a college degree, and I graduated from the University of Texas. I've been married for 22 years to my wonderful husband. We run 3 small, successful businesses together and have 2 beautiful girls that are our pride and joy. I believe in limited government, low taxes, reasonable regulation. As a pistol packing mama, in defending the Second Amendment, protecting innocent life, and celebrating personal responsibility. You and I are blessed to live in the best part of the greatest state in the Union, and it's because of our people out here who are working hard for a living, following the rules, paying their bills, raising their families, and honoring their God. We are a staunchly conservative district that stretches from Comanche, Coryell, Erath, Hamilton, McCullough Mills, San Sabbath, and Somerville counties. And in the deeply red heart of Texas where we live, we elected President Trump by 81% and Ted Cruz by 82%. And just last week I was down the road here in Gatesville having dinner, and a fellow in the restaurant saw my red shirt and he was like, "What team are you on?" And I told him, "The conservative Republican team." And he stood up in the middle of that restaurant to say, "And God bless America." Well, that's who we are out here. And y'all, that's why it is so wildly out of sync with our district that for the last 8 years, our state rep has ranked at the bottom of the conservative index every session as the second most liberal Republican in the entire Texas House. Now, we receive a lot of mailers, and they make some pretty bold and good-looking claims. And if even half of that were true, I wouldn't be running. But when we look at the actual voting record, and when we see the campaign donations totaling over $1 million, and that over 92% of that comes from outside our district, it's shocking and disappointing. Now, we don't have time up here tonight to go over all the examples of a poor voting record, but we do have a handout, and if you don't already have a copy, please get one before you leave. Because the thing for you and me out here is this: when we live in the reddest district just about the entire state, we should lead as courageous conservatives like we are. Not prop up our feet and wait for someone else in some other part of the state to lead on the issues that matter to our people. We can do so much better. And if we're going to keep Texas red and help President Trump keep America great, we have got to make a change for strong, authentic, conservative leadership. My name is Shelby Slauson. I look forward to your questions, and I'm humbly asking for your vote. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, City of Gatesville, and all that put this together. My name is Cody Johnson. I'm running for representative for this great state of Texas, because what we do tonight directly affects our kids, our grandkids, and our great-grandkids. So it's time to put up or shut up. Well, guess what? I'm not gonna shut up. But let's get one thing straight. I am not a politician. But I will tell you that I'm a strong, conservative businessman, and I know how to get things done. 10 years ago, I was driving a truck, working from paycheck to paycheck, hoping to get by. But I stand before you today, proving the existence that the American dream still exists and alive and well. Because today I own Twitch and Jay in Steveville with my wife Luann, my 3 kids, Bailey, Tori, and Clay, and my mom, Linda, aka Mama. We started Twitch and Jay 4 years ago with three employees. Today we have 120, consists of 6 companies. So I understand the responsibility of running a large-scale business and the importance of bringing jobs to my area, kind of like our president, Donald J. Trump. And I can tell you after meeting him, he truly does care about the American people, the same way that I care about my employees and the people of District 59. So let's get back to government that represents the people. You know the word representative means to represent, period. We've gotten away from that. But it's gonna take a lot of hard work. I promise you that I will work harder than anybody that's ever held an office before work. I will work to shrink government and reform Austin. I will get rid of unpaid, unfunded mandates. I will grow our economy and create more jobs. I have a proven record of that. Protect our constitutional rights of guns, life, and property. They're not getting our guns, y'all. And they're not getting we're gonna protect our unborn. And we want to continue to improve our local education. But just like President Trump draining the swamp in D.C., I'm going to drain the swamp here in Texas. In the past, I have voted for J.D. He campaigns as a conservative, but he legislates like a liberal. He votes with the Democrats more than any other Republican in the House. He's also taking more money than anybody else that's represented. I'm running to make sure that we have a representative that stands for and votes the way hardworking rural Republicans want and expect. You can count on me. Thank you.
So, budget season, all right? I mean, it gets pretty interesting just in Coryell County, but imagine in the state of Texas. Here's the deal, whenever the representatives show up in Austin, 2/3 of that budget is already spoken for. Nobody gets to ask about it, nobody gets to talk about it, 2/3 is already gone. So they spend all that time trying to divvy up 1/3 of your money to figure out what's gonna get funded, what's gonna get cut, and what have you. All right? So I would say, and remember you all get the same question, elected to this office next session, how would you trim the fat and or increase budgets? Well, no, how would you trim the fat? Where would you trim the fat in order to lessen the possibilities of unfunded mandates on our counties and municipalities, which has been a big problem up until this last session. This last session, the actual Republican caucus got together and decided as a group that they would veto anything that became an unfunded mandate. It kind of worked because there were some earmarks in the background that you eventually turned into unfunded mandates. But what are you going to do to trim the fat and mitigate the risk of unfunded mandates?
I sit on Appropriations Committee, which is the most powerful committee in the House. I sit on Article 2, which deals with health, human services, that sort of thing. Now, we run very tight, we run very lean. And the best way to trim fat down there is with our Sunset Commission, which looks at every aspect of the government, decides, does this piece of government, does this regulation, does this bureaucracy even need to exist? Or can we just wipe it off the books this time? And when you're talking about the entire budget for our state, we run one of the leanest budgets already on a per capita basis compared to any other state in the country. That's why we have no personal income tax. We're not spending that much money that we have to have a personal income tax like so many other states do. I'm sorry, were you?
No, you're good.
You're good. Oh, sorry. As far as my role in the budget on Article 2, last session, I was in charge of dispersing a total of $264 million directly to agencies in Article 2 under Health and Human Services. And we make sure that that money is spent well on kids, on services for senior citizens, for families, and we think we do a good job that way. So that's how we trim it, is looking at the budget. We try to do zero-based accounting when we can, but that's a lot easier said than done. And when you have 2/3 of the budget already spoken for, that 1/3, you have to stretch it to make it go a long ways. And so that concludes my answer.
Okay, so if I remember right, the latest state budget was approximately $250 billion. A lot of that, or part of that, included some mitigation for Hurricane Harvey that came in. Well, those kinds of things are necessary in our budget. But when we look at what are the core functions of government, that's where we have to get really honest with ourselves as Texans about what do we want our government actually providing for us. Because the government does a lot of things that involve tourism, that involve arts councils and different commissions out there. Well, that's not necessarily a core function of government, but do the people want that? Because if they don't, that's where you trim your fat at. And if you do, then you're not going to be trimming. So core functions of government to me are going to be making sure our people are safe. Our law enforcement, our first responders, our military. It's going to be the infrastructure that we drive on, the pipes that bring the water to us, our sewer system. Some of that is a local issue, but that is exactly where those unfunded mandate issues come from. And the legislature in Austin has gotten really good and really into the habit of telling Texans that, we're maintaining a budget that's under population growth plus inflation. Meanwhile, they're sending requirements down to our counties and our cities and our ISPs that force those local governments to raise our taxes on us. And that's where we feel it the most. So the critical point at which we trim or we provide that tax relief for people has got to come in between what happens down in Austin and what happens with our local jurisdictions. I think that the more local control that we have, the better. Because I don't know about y'all, but I like it that I can go down easily and visit with my county commissioners and my county judge and my superintendent and my board of trustees and my city council and my mayor about what's going on in the budget. Where are those touch points that perhaps we could be more efficient? It's a whole lot harder to get down to Austin and have that conversation with 150 different bureaucrats in the House. So, anytime. Thank you.
Well, this question is actually pretty simple. I come from a business that has 120 employees. It's simple management. We have to take out the special interest and get rid of the junk. I mean, let's get real, y'all. We have so much waste, so much unnecessary. It needs to be simplified. But I run a business and I run a big budget. But we have to get down there and we have to manage like a business, just like our president's done in Washington. That's how come they hate him so bad right now, is because he's making them look bad. He's managing it like a business. I have experience in that. With people, relationships, with money, with big budgets. But we have to trim the fat by simplifying things. Things have gotten so complicated on all different levels, from the local to the state to even the federal. But we just have to simplify things and manage. Thank you.
Ms. Slauson, you're next. And listen, before they got started, they all agreed to some very specific rules to show respect for you in the audience. So hopefully tonight we'll show respect for them. Applause is just fine. Just leave it at that though, all right? All right.
That's a real setup, Jack. What's your question?
Now I forgot. Okay, listen. One of the bills that ultimately failed this past session had to do with taxpayer-funded lobbying, all right? There were some appropriations made, some additions made where it only affected counties with 250,000 residents or more, but it still ultimately failed. So they said in Austin that it was okay for municipalities and counties to take your money and then give that money to lobbyists to go down in Austin and lobby for pro-municipal, pro-county, anti-taxpayer initiatives. One of those examples, that came up in the last legislative session, last two legislative sessions, was forced annexation. Remember that? And that actually got passed. And once again, it was chiseled out to where, let's say, Coppersville want to annex some land outside the city. We usually go to a city council meeting, it gets adopted, and that's all there is to it. With this legislation, if it wouldn't have been made just for larger counties, what would have happened is you would be asked to go to the polls and vote whether or not you want to be annexed or not. You actually get a say if your taxes are going to go up or not, right? So the question is, what are your thoughts about this bill that fell that would have ended taxpayer-funded lobbying? And what would you have done?
I was in favor of the bill. Basically what it comes down to, Cliff Notes version of that, is taxpayer reform has been a huge issue for all of us. Property taxes are out of control, people are overburdened by it. But what happens is our municipalities, our counties are able to hire lobbyists to go down and fight against the very tax reform that people so desperately want. So our tax dollars are being used against us down in Austin. Now it's a little bit of a touchy issue because our commissioners don't have the ability to go down and spend the whole session down in Austin. But that state rep ought to be actively engaged with our communities about the taxpayer relief that we need out here. They shouldn't have to hire a lobbyist to go down there and do that for them. I am very much in favor of taxpayer-funded lobbying reform for that reason. But I'll also tell you, I sat down there a lot during the session, and I watched as that bill developed over in the House, and I watched as our state rep voted against that bill for counties of the size and population that are in this district. That was really frustrating. Now, ultimately, the whole bill fell apart anyway. But before that happened, our rep was voting against us.
The first thing I would do, and I'm in the process of doing it now, is I've met with the different entities in our district, from the superintendents of our schools, to some of the sheriffs, to a bunch of the commissioners. I'm actually gonna have roundtable forums where I meet with them on a regular basis. The educators, for instance, I will never know as much about education as they do, but I'm a good listener and a good learner. But if I have all of them in my district that are telling me what they need and what we do, then we can take to them. But I do not like the fact that the taxpayers are having to spend on lobbyists. But we have to get real and get back to the people. That's what we haven't had for many years, is the special interest. A lot of this goes back to the special interest. When they're taking special interest money, they can't make the decisions that they need, that are right or what's best for the district. It's what's best, what they were told to do. That's how come I never took any special interest money, because I refused to be one of the ones that was sitting at my desk and somebody come by and throw a bill down and say, here, this is how it's gonna be. It's not gonna be that way. This is about y'all, the people. Because we're all the same, y'all. But we have to stand up and take our government back. And we do that by standing together and doing the right thing. Thank you.
As I remember this occurring and taking place, this bill in question was very important to the governor and to the Speaker of the House. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when there's a bill out there that the governor says, this bill's important to me, and the Speaker says, this bill's important to me, you better believe it's really important to them, and they expect something to happen on that bill. So what we did, we rural guys got together, put an amendment in there that took out our counties. Took out, I think it was 220 something counties, and left only the huge counties in there, like Harris County, Dallas, Fort Worth, those big guys. And we said, you guys can go fight it out like you want. Our counties are out of this. We don't have a fight in this anymore. And then I think that bill just died on the vine because everybody realized it was a bad bill to begin with. But we took care of our own first.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes, sir.
All right. You know, we asked our citizens to provide us some questions. And here's one, and I've cleaned it up a whole lot. This first time.
Well, heck.
Listen, can y'all save us a bunch of mailers and save some trees and all that? Just come out tonight and confess what kind of skeletons y'all got in the closet.
Well, no, actually, when this process started, when I had the visit with the family, my 3 kids, my wife, and my mom, I visited with each one of them individually, and then we had the group meeting, and that was the thing that was the biggest thing about having our family's name drug through the mud and just the mudslinging and all that stuff. So they actually run 2 extensive FBI background checks, as well as an independent. It went all the way back to 1984, and I'm clean. There's nothing that doesn't matter. I either lived a really boring life or God was looking after me, but it's just, you know, there again, this is, the reason I'm running is because me and my wife, we've always been politically active, or politically aware, just not really politically active. And you sit there and you watch the news and you think, man, that's craziness, how in the world that like to happen? And like my son's 18 years old, and he's sitting there at the chair watching the news, and he said, Dad, is that right? Can they be saying that? Can they be doing that? It's time that we come together as real, normal people, real hard-working Americans that are just trying to do the right thing, to do the right thing. And that's what this is all about, doing the right thing.
In answer to that question, I don't think I have to say anything. All I've got to do is listen. I'm about to hear everything in my past come back to me. It happens every time we run for re-election. It takes something of a thick skin to do this type of job. I haven't developed one yet. That's why in our first two re-election campaigns, I told our campaign manager, you're not going to mention our opponent. You're not going to say a word about it. We're going to put flyers, mailers out about ourselves. We're not going to mention our opponent. The last fellow was a little different thing. I think building a pipe bomb puts you in a different category. So as far as talking about the past, what I want folks to know is that I go down to Austin to be your servant. I go down there to work with everybody else who wants to work with me. I have developed a reputation of being able to cross party lines and work across party lines because people know I'm coming over there not to jump down their throat, but try to work together on an issue. We first agree on what we can agree on, we get that off the table. Then we leave on the table what we can agree on and we work out a compromise. You can have principled compromises in Austin without compromising on your principles. But you have to be willing to work with others. You have to be willing to swallow your pride. And you have to be willing to do like me, let somebody else have the credit. I don't care who gets the credit as long as good things get done down in Austin.
Okay, so unlike these guys, I'm going to tell you I have a testimony. I'm 42 years old. I'm a Jesus-loving Christian mama. And when I was 17 years old, 25 years ago, I made a terrible mistake and I was arrested for a DWI. Now that's not a particular secret. And in fact, before we started out a campaign, the room full of volunteers there, I made sure that they all knew about it. A lot of them already knew because we go to church together and they heard me give a testimony about it many years ago. Now, when that happened, my parents, who were just so outraged and disappointed in me, made the very affirming decision to have me accept the consequence of that behavior. And it became a great lesson in personal responsibility, where I paid the fine, I had to work it off, and I certainly never had that problem ever again. So perhaps I'm the only person with a past on this stage, I don't know, but I can tell you that providing that testimony and the story of redemptive mercy and grace is very important. I'm not proud of what happened, but I am proud of the Lord that I saved, that I know that I served, and I know what He worked in my life. Thank you.
Okay. So, you answered that first, right? Representative. Another question that we got from the public was on day one. What's going to be, try to narrow it down to three. Top three priorities. I mean, do you want to introduce new law that doesn't exist? Or do you want to tackle existing law to make it better? What are your first three priorities going to be as soon as you take office?
The first three priorities. Being a family practice doctor, I think you can understand why healthcare is very primary on our list. And we are working to develop a group, not just one law, but a group of laws. And that is going to help you afford medical insurance better, afford your drugs better, forget this in-network, out-of-network silliness. It's going to bring more doctors to rural areas. It's going to help keep rural hospitals open. That's our first group of laws that we are working on. Now, our second, and let me explain where this comes from. Being a family practice doctor, I believe strongly in vaccines and vaccinations. Now, there's a group out there, we just call them the anti-vaxxers. They do not believe in children having vaccines at all. None of them. No vaccines. I find that to be very risky. And when you see these commercials about measles outbreaks, mumps outbreaks, those can be serious diseases in children. Vaccines can save them, prevent them totally. What I don't ever want to see happen is an outbreak of bacterial spinal meningitis and other things like that that can be killers. So one of our laws is going to be about vaccines. The other thing we're interested in public education is we are strongly supportive of pro-public education. And we want to get rid of all this testing